when I was talking about Atkins saying he needs to at least be demoted to offensive line coach, if it was up to me, he'd be the first coach gone. The offensive line has been that bad. But Norvell's going to want to keep this offensive line recruiting class with the guys that Dilo just mentioned, Solomon Thomas, Peyton Joseph.
Peyton Joseph, yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
he's
getting
going
it.
to, yeah, Mario Nash, those guys. He's going to want to keep this
Yeah.
class for at least this year. But I agree, the development's been horrible. It's got to get better. And maybe Atkins just solely relying on the offensive line could help. I have my doubts, but
It's got to get better. It's got to get better. And, my concern is what you do now at quarterback, because it depends on what you have there developmental wise at the offensive line. Like, you've been relying on those transfers to come in. 1 year guys, definitely it shows this year with 1 years coming in and hoping that you'd be able to suffice to hide that you haven't been able to develop some of these guys that you recruited that were highly ranked, but that is going to hurt overall your offense, and that's how it's ran. And I just have been highly disappointed in how some of these guys that have been in the system for so long, we don't even get to really see them until it's full on emergency mode, gentlemen. It's full on emergency, Cat 5 hurricane coming in. You've got to throw in whatever you have left. Like, it's really bad. And I agree with y'all. Like, you got the recruits coming in, and just like the comments are saying, you can't really get excited about offensive line recruitment when you're bringing in some talented guys, because they're not going to get developed. They will not get developed. You can't say, oh, some of these guys have, look at Darius Washington. What a complete letdown of a season this has been from him. You're having to rely on Maurice Smith, an undersized center, for multiple years now.
who was
As
just
a
all of a
starter.
sudden had the crazy snapping issues, who hasn't really had them in a couple years. And just all of a sudden, the last couple of games, he's been horrible with it.
And you know what's even crazier, though? Me and Dustin know this because being at practices so much. This guy is banged up every season, and you don't have any other backup. Like, that's one thing that I feel like Dustin and a lot of people there that are at practices, they understand that Florida State has not had a reasonable backup fully for Maurice Smith in so damn long. And I'm very scared once Maurice Smith leaves FSU of what they're going to do there on the inside to replace him. I'm really scared. I feel like I'm in Halloween Horror Nights of
isn't the plan kind of Jacob Rizzi? Isn't that what they brought him in to do? And I feel like they're saving him for his red shirt. Like, they'll play him the last 4 games of the season if needed. But the plan was he had 3 years to play 2, if I'm correct. And they don't want to waste that for this season when they think they can be better in the next few seasons.
From what I understand, he can play regardless. Like, he doesn't have to be quote unquote redshirted. He's got 2 years. So if that's the case, then
yeah. But my point is, I think they want to save him for future seasons and not just have just 1 season of him.
We'll see.
I'm not saying I agree with it. That's my theory.
I wouldn't say that he's stood out the most during the practices.
Listen, man, I just need something.
But in my opinion, Andre Otto, probably your second best center on the team at the moment, and obviously he's starting at guard. But the bigger problem for Florida State is you're going to be back in this situation next year. I mean, Washington's gone, Byers is gone, Scott's gone, Maurice is obviously gone, like we've talked about. And, you've got Jalen Early at guard instead of at tackle, where you're probably going to need him next year. It's a mess, man. It's a mess. You're going to have to hit the portal because you need tackles.
Desperately. Mm-hmm. The tackles are so bad. Even if Lucas Simmons takes a crazy step, they need to be better.
And the tackle position is not an easy market, man. It's hard to kind of get lucky there. It's very, very hard. Like, programs are not going to want to lose. Definitely not starters, number one, but even some young upside guys that are making good developmental progress. Like, that is a hard grab to do, but that's the position that you put yourself into, and you're still going to run with this as the coach there. Norvell's in a really interesting spot. Like, we were just talking about what kind of moves need to be made. Like, he could make some big boy moves here, but I just don't see that happening just because you're relying on the recruiting. But you're relying so much on the recruiting, you can't develop anybody. If you want to make a big move, man, you got to make a move in the offensive line department, in my opinion. And that's where, my concern kind of comes into, Mike Norvell and what this looks like moving forward in the next couple of years. It's just keep digging and digging and digging. And you've dug yourself so far now where it's showing in 2024, and
he's definitely put himself in like the classic chicken and an egg scenario where, that'll phrase, but instead the chicken's running around with its head cut off and the egg's already scrambled on someone's plate. Like, it's just bad out here. And, he doesn't want to fire someone because of the recruiting, but the recruits aren't being developed. And then the development's leading to on-field disasters. He's got to cut it off somewhere. And I'm not convinced he will, but he needs to.